I'm done supporting you, he said, not even looking up from his phone. You and the kids will figure it out. I was 8 months pregnant, standing in our kitchen, and the father of my children had just told me he was cutting off all financial support. Not in anger, exactly. In that flat, cold voice that scared me more than yelling ever could. 3 weeks earlier, I found the texts. I wasn't even snooping. His laptop was open. An email notification popped up from a coworker named Brooke, somebody he saw maybe twice a year at regional meetings. And something in me just knew before I even clicked it. The messages went back months. I miss your voice. I wish I could tell you things I can't tell anyone else. Nothing explicit, nothing he could call just friendship with a straight face. There were calls at 11 p.m. logged on the phone bill, calls he said were work stuff. I'm not naive. I know what an emotional affair looks like when you're living inside one without realizing it. I didn't scream. I didn't throw anything. I was 8 months pregnant with our third child, with two little ones already asleep down the hall, and I had exactly enough energy to be calm and clear. So I gave him an ultimatum. Not divorce, not an explosion. I told him I needed 3 things: full transparency, phone, accounts, everything open between us, marriage counseling, real counseling, not a one-time conversation to make me feel better, an actual effort to reconnect, because somewhere in the last few years we'd become roommates raising kids instead of partners. That's it. That was the whole ask. He agreed. For about 4 days, then he got distant, defensive, started saying I was punishing him for something that never even happened. Started acting like I was the unreasonable one for wanting proof instead of just his word, after his word had already failed me once. I was scared. I was hugely pregnant, exhausted, and I didn't want to navigate this completely alone. So I called his sister, not to humiliate him, not to turn his family against him. I just needed another adult in the room who loved him and could maybe help him hear what I was saying. I told her gently, asked if she'd talk to him, encourage him toward counseling.
I feel
That's
so
all.
peaceful
I have
today,
never
just
seen a
sitting
person
here.
change so fast in my life.
The baby
The
is
second he
kicking
found out his
gently,
sister knew,
reminding
it
me
was
to
like a
be
switch
present.
flipped. He didn't come home upset about the affair being
We'll
discussed.
cherish
He
these
came home
quiet
furious
moments
that I had
together.
gone behind his back and turned his own family against him. He was screaming about loyalty and privacy and how I had humiliated him, while the actual affair, the actual betrayal, barely came up at all. It was like that part had already been filed away, forgiven by himself, on his own timeline without my input. Within 2 days, he said he wanted a divorce. Within a week, he had moved out. Within 2 weeks, he had put a deposit on his own apartment and stopped depositing money into our joint account. I am 8 months pregnant. I have 2 children at home who don't understand why daddy's clothes are gone. And the man who vowed to take care of me chose, in this exact moment, to make sure I had to call my mother and ask for grocery money. The cruelty of it still takes my breath away some mornings. Not the affair. People are flawed. Marriages get tested. I could have survived working through that with him. What I can't make sense of is the punishment for asking him to be accountable. I didn't expose him publicly. I didn't tell our friends, our neighbors, his job. I asked for honesty and effort quietly inside our own home. And for that, he decided I deserved to be financially abandoned while carrying his child. I've spent the last week doing things I never imagined I'd be doing this pregnant. Meeting with a family law attorney about spousal and child support, about protecting myself and the kids before this baby even arrives. Starting therapy, not because I'm broken, but because I refuse to carry this alone in silence the way I think he wanted me to. Calling my sister every night just to hear a steady voice. My older 2 don't know the details. They just know mommy's strong, and that's all they need right now. I make their lunches. I read them stories. I rub my belly and tell this baby, quietly, that we are going to be okay, even when my hands are shaking while I say it. I used to think the scariest part of all this would be being alone. Now I know the scariest part was almost staying quiet, almost accepting a hollow apology just to keep the peace, just to avoid this exact explosion. I didn't cause this reaction. I revealed it, There's a difference between a man who's sorry and a man who's only sorry you found out. I know now which one I married, and I know 8 months pregnant, terrified, and entirely on my own 2 feet. I am still going to be the one who's standing when this is over.